Welcome to Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Weldin. Today's story is called Flopsy Bunnies, an adaptation of a short story by Beatrix Potter, written for you by Daniel Hinds. Thanks! Enjoy the episode! Flopsy Bunnies. Once upon a time, there was a little family of bunnies called the Flopsies. The father was Benjamin, and the mother was Flipsy, and they had 6 little bunny kids. The kids all had their own names, but they were forever wrestling and tumbling and rolling together, so everyone just called them the Flopsies and left it at that. Now, being little bunnies who were growing fast, the Flopsies were always hungry. They lived nearby their uncle, Peter Rabbit, and had learned from him the danger of going into human gardens. He'd told them the story many times of how their grandfather had been caught by mean old Farmer McGregor and baked into a pie, so they were very cautious. Or at least, they tried to be. But, after all, they were only very little bunnies. One morning, when they were especially hungry, they checked the cupboards and found them empty. Complaining to their father, Benjamin, he took all 6 of the little ones, and they took a walk down the lane to where Peter lived. Their uncle had been very busy lately and was running a little garden of his own. He never hesitated to give his fuzzy nieces and nephews extra cabbage or carrots when they were out of food at home.
"Hello, Peter," said Benjamin. "How's your morning?"
"Benjamin and the Flopsies," Peter said. "Wonderful to see you." "Uncle Peter!" cried the smallest of the Flopsies, a little girl bunny with crooked ears. "Do you have lettuce? Do you have carrots? My belly says it's time to eat."
"Your belly always says it's time to eat," said her father.
"Well, I have a very smart belly," said the girl. Peter laughed but shook his head. "I'm sorry, Flopsies. The carrots and lettuce are nearly here, but not quite. I suspect I'll have quite a crop to share next week, but today they're still too small to do anyone any good."
"No worries, Peter," said Benjamin Bunny. "We'll go check the rubbish heap. There's always something there to nibble on."
"All right," said Peter. "But you and your smart bellies be careful." "We will, Uncle Peter," said all the Flopsies together. Benjamin rounded up his kiddos and took them towards Farmer McGregor's. They had learned to avoid his fields like we had talked about earlier, but they had learned that he wasn't nearly so careful with his rubbish heap. It was way off to the side of the barn, and it was filled with all sorts of things. There was lots of plastic and paper and other things strange to the bunnies, but there were often scraps of food as well. The humans, it seemed, weren't as hungry as the bunnies, and they'd often leave behind a bite of sandwich or a lick of chocolate, or even whole vegetables that had just gone a little brown around the edges. When they got to the rubbish heap, the Flopsies gave squeals of delight and dove in. They were soon wiggling and burrowing through the trash, tasting greasy paper, too chewy, some grass clippings, tasted like lawnmower oil, and some pots of jam, mostly empty. Finally, way in the back, probably forgotten for weeks now, they found some old cabbage.
"Jackpot," said Benjamin, pulling out the cabbage for his little ones.
It had definitely been there for a while, because it was starting to sprout, and it was big and leafy and green and absolutely delicious. The Flopsies fell onto it at once, munching and crunching with wild abandon. Now, it's said among the bunnies that too much cabbage makes one drowsy, which is another word for sleepy. I've never felt sleepy after eating it, but then again, I'm not a bunny. The Flopsies certainly found it made them drowsy, though, and as soon as their bellies were full, they curled up in the rubbish heap and fell fast asleep. Benjamin ate the rest of the cabbage and found that he was getting pretty sleepy himself. He looked at his little ones, all curled up in some old paper, and smiled. For himself, he crawled into a big, empty popcorn bag and fell asleep at once with the scent of butter in his twitching nose. Hours passed. The sun was warm and gentle. A lawnmower droned in the distance, and flies buzzed about the trash in lazy spirals. A little mouse named Thomasina, a friend of Benjamin and the Flopsies, came picking through the rubbish heap, also looking to scrounge herself a little lunch. Without knowing it, she walked right over the popcorn bag holding Benjamin, waking the big bunny up.
"Hey, I'm asleep in here," he said. "Who's walking on me?"
"Oops, sorry," said Thomasina. "Oh, Benjamin, come for some food too?"
"Yeah, me and the Flopsies. Wait, what's that noise?"
They both stopped and listened. Benjamin with his long ears, and Thomasina with her fuzzy little cupped ears. "Oh, it's Farmer McGregor," said the mouse. "I recognize those heavy clomp-clomp boots he always wears." Benjamin and the mouse ducked back down into the popcorn bag. A second later, the farmer appeared, carrying a big burlap-looking sack all full of fresh lawn clippings. He dumped the grass onto the rubbish heap. It showered down over the nestled cluster of baby bunnies, all sleeping in a pile. It was so gentle it didn't wake them up, and Benjamin breathed a sigh of relief when he saw his Flopsies all covered up. Unfortunately, Farmer McGregor gave the bag one last shake, and it fanned off some of the loose grass.
"Oh, what's this?"
the farmer said, leaning down.
"Is that a fuzzy little ear I see? Is there a little bunny in my rubbish?"
He reached into the grass and brushed it away.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little rabbits,
he said, and as he counted each one, he scooped them up and dropped them into his sack. The Flopsy Bunnies dreamt that their mother was turning them over in bed. They stirred a little in their sleep, but still they didn't wake up. Benjamin started to shout, but the little mouse Thomasina slammed a paw over his mouth. "Quiet," she whispered into his long ear. "If you shout, he'll grab you too. Wait a moment, and then we can go rescue them." Mr. McGregor took the sack and smiled to himself.
"What a pie this lot will make!"
He turned to head back to the field and put his lawnmower away, leaving the sack of Flopsy Bunnies hanging on the fence post. "He won't be gone for long," said the mouse. "Let's go." Benjamin and Thomasina ran to the bag and stared up at it. "What do we do?" asked the mouse.
"Lift me up and I'll chew through the bag," said Benjamin.
They tried that for a moment, but the bunny was just too heavy for the mouse. They could hear the clop-clop of the farmer's boots enter the shed. He'd be back any second. "You're too heavy. You lift me up," said the mouse. Benjamin saw the sense in that and stood as tall as he could against the fence. The mouse ran up his back and started chewing at the corner of the bag.
"Clop, clop, clop."
"Quick!" hissed Benjamin. "He's almost back." With a final rip, the corner of the bag popped open and 6 sleepy little bunnies tumbled out. Benjamin caught them one by one and set them on the ground. "Let's go," Thomasina said. "One more thing," said Benjamin. He rooted down and found 6 rocks. With the mouse's help, he got them up and into the sack.
"This way he won't notice and come looking for us right away."
"Good plan," said the mouse, and then the farmer was coming around the corner, and they pulled back with the Flopsies into the tall grass. Farmer McGregor hefted the bag and smiled.
"Time to show the wife what I've found for dinner."
He walked into the farmhouse, and they could hear him talking with his wife.
"There will be enough fur here to make you a nice pair of mittens."
"Oh, that sounds lovely. I can't wait." A minute later, there was the sound of the sack being emptied onto a table, 6 heavy little rocks clunking onto the hard surface.
"Oh, dinner!"
shouted the wife.
"Mittens? Is that a joke? It's a bunch of rocks." "It was the rabbits," the farmer roared. "Those lousy little bunnies."
A rock came flying out the open window.
"Time to go,"
said Benjamin, and he led the mouse and his Flopsies away from the farm. Together, the 8 of them ran and scurried and hopped just as fast as they could until they were home safe at the burrow. They stayed away from the rubbish heap after that, and while Mrs. McGregor didn't get her new gloves, the Flopsy family was so grateful to Thomasina that they all shed some fur and made her not only gloves, but a jacket and hat to match. And from that day on, the Flopsies called the little mouse Auntie, and they were good friends for all of their days. The end. Thanks for listening.